Hey guys, how's it going? Excited to be here for this week's Labs update, the dev section of it at least. This week is kind of the culmination of a few weeks of effort in terms of we're basically starting off our release schedule this week. So hopefully tomorrow, I know the Apple review is currently processing for one of our builds. We're doing a bit of testing on one of the desktop builds, and I think Android just passed QA. Hopefully today or tomorrow we will be seeing releases for ID blinding. It'll be turned off initially, but the support for ID blinding will be in the clients. Basically, the open group servers have to signal to clients when they want ID blinding turned on for their individual open groups, but all of the clients should support it at this point. It's just it won't be turned on yet. So we're going to wait until a bunch of clients upgrade, and then we're going to start probably switching on the official session open group servers to ID blinding. If all goes well there, we're going to recommend the other open group operators also push themselves to blinding as well, and hopefully that means that in a couple of weeks' time we'll have ID blinding across most of the open groups, if not all of them, depending on how the updates go. So that's the major things that are going through this release. On iOS, we also have the database refactor, which we've been working on for a very long time, but I'm very excited that it's in review right now in the Apple Store, and hopefully it should be rolling out tomorrow. So for people who get the update, there will be, when you open session after you've updated, there'll be a migration screen. It says like your database is migrating. This may take a few minutes. It really and there's a progress bar as well. It depends how big your session database is for how long the migration is going to take. So for pretty heavy power users, it can take like 2 minutes or something like that. But for people that aren't using session that often or just have 1 or 2 contacts, it should happen in 10, 20 seconds type deal. So, or even faster depending on how much you use session. So that will be happening. That's the major stuff that we've worked on. We're also working on emoji reacts this week, and the menu redesign and a few things here and there for like quality of life and bug improvements that you should see in the recent releases. So yes, things are starting to come together on the session side for a new release, and there'll be things coming in the next couple of weeks as well. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears open for what's going on that front. On the LokiNet side, we have been continuing to work on Mac and Windows support. We're having a few issues still with Windows, but we think we have a resolution or a solution similar to what I spoke about last week, but since it's been the weekend anyway, we haven't worked too much on that, but that's our current solution for Windows DNS leak. So we should be pushing that through this week. Hopefully, just fingers crossed, hopefully we have a release for Windows and Mac this week. That'll probably be going to internal testing though. It probably won't go out to the public just yet. Once we've tested it internally, hopefully we'll be able to release it to the public, and we'll be able to move forward with some of the LokiNet stuff that we've been working on and want to include in session. On the core side, we have basically still been troubleshooting some of the Ledger communication issues with the GUI wallet. It's going pretty well right now. We think we've isolated it to being related to when a wallet is rescanning, that there's issues with Ledger there, so we're like kind of burrowing into that particular issue, and hopefully that'll produce some results. And we're also on the core side, Jason's been working on a lot of the back-end session related stuff. So like the session push Ryan's been working on the session push notification server, but Jason's been working on the session storage server or the Oxen storage server for messages, because we're changing the way our closed groups are working, and we want some changes to be in an upcoming hard fork. And then also some changes related to storage as well. For closed groups, which we're working on as well. So those are the 2 things that he's been working on. But I think that just about wraps up all of the distinct projects. So yeah, thanks guys for listening, and I'll throw it over to Josh, Cam? I don't know, you'll get a mixed bag, we'll see what happens. Thanks guys.
Hey everybody, you've got Alex here today, you had Cam last week, I think it was Josh the week before, but you know what, variety is the spice of life, so the marketing update, you get a new person every week, more or less, or so it seems at the moment. But let's just jump right into it. So really, a lot of the work that we've been doing this week in marketing has been behind the scenes stuff. We've been really oiling up that marketing engine to make sure that that bad boy is absolutely purring heading into the final stretch of the year, which means we're doing kind of, well, for the creative types in marketing, a lot of boring admin, ops kind of stuff. But it's really important. So we've been really focusing on what our priorities are going to be for the rest of this year, specifically for Q4, as well as really just refining the processes for how we're actually going to choose those priorities in the future, going forward as well. So we've been looking back at some of the projects that we've been doing, some of the projects that are ongoing, and really trying to consolidate and focus and make sure that everybody's pulling in the same direction and that we're finishing some of those projects off or making tough decisions where they need to be made to make sure that everything's operating efficiently and that we're all heading towards those same goals, those same priorities as much as possible. Now, like any good startup, we use Notion here at the Oxen Labs. And Notion has been a super useful tool. We've been on it for a little while now. But over the years, or over the time that we've been using it, things have gotten a little bit messy. It's just, you leave a task here or there, the database gets a little bit unmaintained, or things just kind of get a bit sloppy, or things have just been left behind. So we've gone back and had a look at some of those things, ordered a bit of a cleanup, and we're kind of changing the way that we're going to be using Notion going forward, which once again, all in the name of efficiency, using a lot of sort of business corporate speak here, but it really is important that we make sure that we're using that Notion second brain as much, or the way that it's intended to be used, I suppose, and that it's not actually holding us back or being a resource drain, that it's really actually helping us get all of the things done that we want to get done and hitting all of those goals that we want to hit. So in terms of things that we've actually been doing, the pets content finally, after battling COVID myself and a slew of other kind of interruptions that have been going on over the last couple of weeks, finally wrapped up a little bow on that pets content, which is really nice to see. And I'll be working with Tom, who's behind the camera now, to do a little bit more video content as well, which will come out of some of that pet stuff, which should be really awesome. If you haven't already seen it, Tom has already finished and uploaded a video that Kee did with the creator of Moby, which is a really interesting piece of technology. We recorded that during the conference. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you go and check that out. And I know that there's another interview which is coming up soon. That one may or may not already be up by the time that this lab update is actually published. So those are really awesome, and it's really good to get out ahead of some of that stuff. Connor is away this week, but he has been working a lot still on the UI UX stuff. We grabbed a few graphics here and there from him just to keep the ball rolling before he went away, but the UI UX stuff has really still been his priority, and that's trucking along really well. We're recently wrapping up a redesign of the settings menus throughout session, which has been a huge task. We've really been trying to consolidate some of those settings, make sure that they all make sense, that they're all intuitive to use, people really understand the choices that they're making when they're changing the settings within the app, which is really important, as well as trying to reduce the number of overall strings that are actually there, because that makes it much easier for people to be able to translate session in the future, which is obviously something that we really want, a really important point for the accessibility of session going forward. So that's been a huge focus. On the OPTF side of things, we've been making a new newsletter. We had a newsletter going in the past with the OPTF, but really it wasn't getting a lot of cut through. I think the main issue was that it was often covering a lot of the same points, or just sort of echoing a lot of the things that were already being said in other email newsletters in the space. So we sprinkled a bit of our magic marketing dust onto that, and we're kind of rebooting it, hoping to give it a bit more of an edge, maybe a bit more character, and a different perspective on that digital rights space than it was giving before. A lot of the time, it was kind of just panning over a few of the big issues that had been going on over the last, say, month or whatever, but now we want to maybe give actually a little bit more of our opinion and editorialize a little bit more in that newsletter, and give people more of an insight into, as people who live this stuff every day, how we're seeing some of the biggest issues in the tech space at the moment. So been working with Sam on that one, and hopefully that will really, well, that should already be out by the time this video is out. So if you haven't already subscribed to the OPTF newsletter, go and check it out. The OPTF's also putting out another call for essays and articles from writers around the world, this time a little bit more specific than the last call that went out. So the last call went really well. We got some really good submissions and some excellent articles were written. This time we're going a little bit more specific, writing about cyber laws. And so I know that Sam has already been in touch with some writers to cover some of these issues, maybe specifically in the EU, I think, and maybe in the Asia Pacific as well. So, but there will also be a public call out which will be going out, or maybe already has gone out. So make sure you keep an eye out for that one. If you know any writers who maybe have a lot of insight into that space, send them our way, because we would love to see what they are going to write. And a little bit of an aside, a little bit of a pat on the back for Wesley and for Tom and for everyone else who has worked on this. But the This Is Session video recently just ticked over 600,000 views on YouTube, which is an awesome landmark to have hit. So congratulations to those guys and the rest of the people who have been working on that. It's a really awesome video, but they have done a really good job of sending it out into the world and making sure that as many people as possible are getting the good vibes from that one. So that's pretty much everything from the marketing team this week, but we'll see you next time.